You'll be pleased to hear Colin will be out of hospital in a couple of days and on his way home to Brisbane.
Knowledge equals gladness.
Okay.
Welcome, bird aliens, bumbling bureaucrats, and bossy Brisbaneites, to the 225th episode of an Unearthly Podcast, streaming live on the 20th of September 2017, and featuring Arc of Infinity, written by Johnny Byrne and starring Peter Davison as the Doctor, Sarah Sutton as Nyssa, Janet Fielding as Tevan Jovanka, and featuring Ian Collier as Omega. I am Bill Sylvia, the Man in Black, and with me are Mad Matt Winchell,
Thunderstorms and lightning. Very, very frightening.
Randy Ronson McCulloch,
I'm not quite dead.
Aaron Romeo Moon Burke,
Hello.
Tim the Enchanter Sheridan,
Have you given any thought to the kingdom of heaven?
and Thomas Fireheart.
Hey guys.
And no, Tim, I haven't. I'm a lapsed Catholic, so you know where I'm going.
The kingdom of heaven is at hand.
All right.
Just
So
like
it's
how
good to have a
everyone gives
goal.
something, I forget what Aaron's was, but most of them are more or less out of the blue or related to the things, and then Thomas is just, hi.
Mine was a clean reference to the
I
fact that
just
it's
said
storming
hello.
over here.
Yeah.
Tim's was Clue, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes?
So he's just doing movie references. I'm fine with that.
Mine was Monty Python and the Holy Grail, or Spamalot if you
Yeah.
prefer.
But yours was
But-
also related to the plot of the episode.
No, mine was also related to the plot of the fact that my heart is still beating.
Ah.
Mine was just hello.
Oh, well, apparently
And
my brain
I-
skipped over that hello.
I should have put in also, I'm getting better, because I actually am.
He's getting better.
Okay.
Apparently, Heart and Vascular are damn near shocked at how fast I'm recovering.
That's good to
He's
hear.
regenerating.
Yeah,
Yes.
well,
Crossing his fingers.
One day you'll look over and it'll be Jodie Whittaker in the next bed.
It's like, well, this is gonna get awkward.
that's going to get very curse of fatal death really quickly.
I have
while we're
Dalek bumps. Oh, wait.
While we're talking health recovery, I actually do have some news of my own. Those members of the podcast that were at GeekCon might or probably noticed that around that time, thanks to basically issues with past shoes that I've had, I'd gone from having minor foot pain on occasion to just about crossing the line to limping more often than regular walking. A couple of days ago, I actually found the insoles, the $20-something insoles that I had bought months ago and never put in my shoes, thinking I didn't need them. And now that I absolutely know I need them, I put them in my shoes. And I've actually just within 2 days crossed back over the line to limping less often than I'm walking. So if I
That's good.
continue improving, I won't actually need to see a doctor about it, which is a good thing.
Nice.
I doubt much of it would be covered.
So what I love about my healthcare right now is it's like I go to the doctor and everything is freaking covered. I have to go in for an ultrasound tomorrow because they found a lump in my chest. Not a cancerous lump, but, you know, they think it's possibly a hernia.
Yeah.
Possible, yeah.
It also is possible that it's just a fatty tissue deposit. They don't know yet.
Have to have a look. Better safe than sorry.
They want to have a look and know for certain what it is.
It's not a tumor.
It's not a tumor. Well, actually, it might be a tumor, but it's not a cancerous tumor.
It's a tumor, not a cancer one, though.
Have you been doing your breast exams, hon?
It's a little lower than that. It's in my solar plexus.
Ah.
which is why they think it might be a hernia.
Anywho.
At which point I get to sing Weird Al for a few days.
Living with a hernia.
Ba-ba-doo-ba-boo. Dibba-dibba-dibba-boo.
Anyway, on tonight's show, we have the news, and there's not a lot of it. I mean,
And hernias.
It's very sparse and sporadic. So we're probably going to get done with it relatively quick. Of course, I always say that, and we still usually get to the 5-minute challenge somewhere in the vicinity of an hour in. And then, of course, our episode review, our final thoughts and ratings. And then, of course, the little tagline teaser for the episode next time. Anyway, let's move on to news. And the first part of news is always birthdays. And there's only 2 today. That's right. An entire week goes by, and I can find 2 people of note that's had birthdays. And one of which was questionable. The first one is on the 19th of September, Carolyn John would have been 77, but died in 2012 at 71. Carolyn John played Liz Shaw for the Third Doctor's first season before moving on. I think she had come back or had planned to come back to Big Finish at one point, but of course dying in 2012, that year that whole time that a whole bunch of Doctor Who people dropped dead.
Right. I wouldn't be surprised because she did do some work for BBV that was allegedly in the Doctor Who universe. You know, in the way that BBV things are.
In the extended universe. The non-canonical universe. And the other birthday is also a posthumous one on tonight, the 20th of September. Christopher Barry, the director from 1963 to 1979, would have been 92 but died in 2014 at 88. Christopher Barry, not to be confused with Chris Barry, the guy on Red Dwarf, directed The Daleks and a few random episodes up until 1979's Creature from the Pit. He directed the second Doctor's first adventure, Planet of the Daleks? Power of the Daleks, and also the fourth Doctor's first adventure, Robot. So both of these are also relatively recent deaths happening within the last 5 years. So.
Mm-hmm. And he had a good run on, for the most part. Robot was a little hinky, but it was good for what it was.
He also, by the way, did Brain of Morbius, which we reviewed last week.
Yeah, I was about to mention that.
I knew we had talked about him recently. I couldn't remember when.
Yep.
So I was relatively surprised when his name came up in my list of birthdays. It's like, why couldn't have you had your birthday 7 days ago? All right, that's it for birthdays. There are no lost stories. Nobody of note in the Doctor Who universe has died. Or at least if they have, they haven't told us through public press releases.
People in other fandoms keep dying, but
it's their
not Doctor Who
turn.
at the moment.
It's their turn. We've suffered enough cancer.
The Reaper comes for us all.
Except you can leave Star Trek alone, please. I mean, having frickin' New Chekhov die a couple years ago was a little bit traumatic.
Mm-hmm.
That and Nimoy suddenly going out like he did.
Yeah.
That's enough target practice, please, Death. Enough.
You could kill Will Wheaton.
Oh, no.
Aww.
No,
Will
not
Wheaton.
really. Not really. I was just taking a crack that everybody hates Wesley. But then again, so does Will Wheaton. So that was not...
Will Wheaton, so please don't kill Will Wheaton. He's an okay guy.
All right. So anyway, that moves us up to our episode news. And Aaron, you have a couple of things there.
Yep, we've got the.
I thought it was about
synopsis.
Trial of a Time Lord, but then I fixed the typo.
Upon with a U instead of an O. Yeah, sorry. Sorry, that was me.
I was
writing
really
in a hurry.
confused until I clicked the link.
Yeah.
All right, so we've got Twice Upon a Time has a synopsis now. Let's see what this says here. 2 doctors stranded in a forbidding snowscape, refusing to face regeneration. A British Army captain seemingly destined to die in the First World War, but taken from the trenches to play his part in the Doctor's story. This is the magical last chapter in the 12th Doctor's epic adventure. Oh, God, Moffat, you and your magic. He must face his past to decide his future, and the Doctor will realize the resilience of humanity, discovering hope in his darkest frozen moment. It's the... Let it go. It's the end of the narrative, but the Doctor's journey is only just beginning.
So the
Well,
beginning of that.
That's what the Doctor is trying to do. Let it go. Just die here in the snow.
So
Let me go.
The beginning of that really sounds like a Peter Pan story.
It does, and it's part
Like, I won't grow up. I won't grow up.
Moffat, you need to be beaten across the face for this.
It is. I mean, it's basically Moffat's been doing this since 2010, and we've all been groaning with it.
And what's worse is he's gonna make us groan while also doing our regeneration.
But we're sitting. Well, we've had to do that before.
A bit, but this one sounds like it's even more groan worthy.
The town called Christmas.
The last regeneration retconned the immediately preceding non-theatrical episode out of existence.
No. It did not.
I don't know where you're getting that from, Bill.
Because he didn't die on Trenzalore.
Oh. So you're not talking Day of the Doctor, you're talking...
Right, yeah, that's why I added the non-theatrical part, because I realized it wasn't quite accurate otherwise.
Well, I would figure that what was actually going on in Trenzalore was probably a trap or a setup or something.
I would have said
anyway.
non-special, Bill.
Good point.
But yeah, the Trenzalore, name of the Doctor doesn't. It was... It
was a bad enough episode that we just want to forget it anyway.
It was the ultimate bad episode in a series of slipshod episodes. Not as bad as the season before, which was a whole bunch of shitty episodes because they were all River Song drama llama stories. But
enough to make you want to scream.
Suffered from a lot of lack of script editing. I mean, a whole lot of lack of script editing. I mean, there's no way Journey to the Center of the TARDIS could never have been written if there was a decent script editor to look at the guy, kick him in the behind, and go, do it again and do it right.
Your script eats. Redo it. How about you make the main characters not suck?
How about you make how about you put some level of, decency into the supporting characters so everybody doesn't hate them from moment one?
And while you're at it, how about you make the power supply actually work properly instead of just adding pipes for no damn discernible reason?
Change that. It's anyway, but Moffat has been doing this whole magical, mystical Peter Pan story. I mean, if you look at the 11th Doctor, he's basically Peter Pan in space. He has that eternal boy thing going on.
Look at Amy Pond. She's basically Wendy wandering around in her nightgown for the first couple of episodes.
Pretty much.
Thankfully, he doesn't usually kill companions before they can grow up.
And, if you take a look at how things changed. Under Russell T Davies, the companion, signed on with the Doctor and went on these massive trips with him. It was a constant, I'm traveling with the Doctor, seeing new sights and everything. Almost from the beginning of the Doctor Who era, of the Moffat Doctor Who era. I don't think so much in the first season, but starting in the 6th season, it was no longer that. It was the Doctor coming, knocking on your windowsill, and taking you on a magical journey.
Let's go on a journey, Wendy. Woohoo!
So, Moffat, somewhere along the way, dropped a few little core tenets that were part of Doctor Who. And I will say to an extent that Russell T laid the groundwork for this a little bit.
But he didn't completely take it as far as Moffat did.
With the Doctor and his companions off returning to modern Earth to deal with family and stuff, which is something you really don't see in classic companions.
Yeah.
Not outside of I want to say even I was going to say the Third Doctor era, but that doesn't deal with family so much. It's just sticking in a quasi-modern Earth.
I mean, that's the closest you got.
Unless you count returning to the Brigadier, things like that. But that's seasons in between.
No, I'm talking more like they're coming back and they're dealing with the fact that Jackie has posted stuff that he's been gone for, a year instead of a month or a week or a day. I can't remember which. And
it was a year.
6 months instead of 6 hours, I believe.
Oh, yeah, actually.
The Doctor and Martha going to dropping Martha off and then dealing with her family and going to that bit with Mark Gaddis's villain character. Can't remember his name.
I think that's a good segue to our next article.
Yeah.
Yes.
We keep tangenting.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
So we have, for the new Christmas special, we have a brand new, nice, shiny image that's kind of muddy, and you can't really see the second guy in it because he almost blends in perfectly with the rubble around him. Like, I seriously thought it was just a lone soldier shooting at a pile of mud.
At first glance.
Yeah. Well, this is apparently...
Well, clearly Zack Snyder directed this scene. It's right before Gal Gadot runs right through them.
The only
Beat me to the punch, Phil. God damn it.
So I've been waiting to say that since I blew the image up on my screen.
Yeah, it's the only color in here is the flames on the All right, so we've got it's obviously a World War I image. You've got one soldier at the bottom of a crater caused by what looks like a mine or a shell or something like that, and it's looks like it's got some poisonous gas and or some mud or water in there, whatever.
It's murky water.
Good. So anyway, he's on one side of this little pool of nastiness and holding up a gun towards what is very hard to see a second soldier on the other side of this pool, and the second soldier has raised his gun as well, and it looks like they're about ready to fire at each other.
It looks like a Mexican standoff to me.
Yeah, basically.
I believe the guy on the left is a British officer. I'm not entirely sure what the guy on the right is. He might be German.
The guy on the left is the captain, played by Mark Gaddis.
Yeah, so he's a British officer. The other guy is German.
He is German.
The second guy is a German, played by Toby Whithouse.
Okay. See, I know I know World War I uniforms to some degree because I played God, what's it called again? Verdun.
Yeah, because
Verdun is a very
Toby
fun game,
Whithouse,
very historically
isn't he
accurate.
the creator of Ben and Polly?
Yeah, but I think he's had some stuff to do with Doctor Who before.
Yeah.
Unless I'm mixing up name. Oh, okay, wait. That's definitely Toby Whithouse in that picture. That's what it says.
It says, but also in the cast for this one are actors Toby So let's see here.
Oh yeah, it does. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. As it mentioned, he's a writer. Okay, so yeah.
He wrote School Reunion.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the one where Sarah Jane met the 10th Doctor. He also was the creator of Being Human. Yeah. So he did School Reunion, Vampires of Venice, God Complex, Town Called Mercy, Under the Lake, Before the Flood, and Lie of the Land, the first of the monk.
And Greeks Bearing Gifts, which features the same alien race as Under the Lake, Before the Flood.
From Torchwood.
Yep.
And he wrote Being Human, the game. He was he wrote an episode of Hotel Babylon, Where the Heart Is. He's a pretty well-known name. I didn't know he did any acting, but it's probably just a bit part. So it's one of those things like You know,
just
they
for we just want you to fill in this bit, just because we
Yeah.
know you and you're around.
well, yeah, I mean, Star Trek does that too with the occasional person, making like a brief walk-on cameo or something.
Mhm.
Which is what all of Mark Gaddis's Doctor Who roles were up until this point.
No, not all of them. The one that he played in the episode I was mentioning, was the major villain. It wasn't just a walk-on cameo.
That was the one where he turned into the big insectoid monster, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
10th Doctor.
10th Doctor, third season.
The guy that had was trying to keep his youth.
Mm-hmm.
That was Mark
Yeah,
Gaddis.
yeah.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember his name. Lazarus, wasn't it? Professor
Yeah.
Lazarus.
It was Lazarus.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. Anyway,
Because he wanted to be Ra's al
Right.
Ghul.
Yes.
Mr. Detective.
Yep. And the freaking name of it's the Lazarus Experiment, so why couldn't I freaking remember that? So, anyway, yeah, this looks like it's just cameo by Toby Whithouse. I don't know what to think of this episode. On one hand, I suspect it's going to be directed really well.
Oh yeah, it's going to be directed
Right.
very well, but I get the feeling that the story is going to be shoddy as hell. Get
Yeah,
out.
nothing about the story or the synopses has impressed me yet.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and remember the fact that, Stephen Moffat had to write this in a matter of weeks. And when Stephen Moffat writes fast, he writes bad.
That and what little we've seen of the first Doctor so far sounds like he's writing season 1 or 2 Doctor and not, late season 3, 4 Doctor.
Mm-hmm. You mean the one where
So-
he's a real son of a bitch?
Yeah.
So he's going to be stuck up and pricky, even though he's supposed to be the end of that run.
Right.
Wonderful. Moving on.
Moving on to alumni news, past Doctor's Companions. We have news for Pearl Mackie. She is going to be appearing on the London stage in the production of Harold Pinter's play, The Birthday Party. It runs at the Harold Pinter Theater from January 9th until 14th April 2018, and it marks the 60th anniversary of the play. She will be appearing with Toby Jones and Zoe Wanamaker in this production as well.
Zoe Wanamaker, isn't she? Yeah, she's
Yes, the voice of Cassandra.
Cassandra. Yeah.
The production is directed by Ian Rickson.
So it involves more than one alumni because she played Cassandra at least twice in Doctor Who.
Yes, and of course Toby Jones played the Dream Lord in Amy's Choice.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, there's a lot of alumni in that one.
So if you're a fan of Doctor Who alumni, or just a fan of Harold Pinter, and you happen to be in London during those days, you can go see her.
I'm gonna check Stefan Mannigan just to make sure he wasn't part of something. Oh, Doctor Who attached to it. Oh, he said he would love to play the Doctor. Never mind.
Ah.
Well, who wouldn't love to play the Doctor? I mean, if they were asked,
Mhm.
Yep.
I would turn
And
that down.
And that's the thing with a lot of articles that are just, would you turn down a chance to play a beloved role that would guarantee you a paycheck for the rest of your life? No, I would not turn that down. Headlines.
There are several people that have, though.
True, but I'm saying every time someone says that they would not turn down the role is not worthy of a headline.
Mm-hmm.
But certain websites and tabloids love to make headlines about such.
Oh, and we have some going on to further news. I think, unless we have anything else to say about the.
No.
Nope, I'm not seeing anything else related to Doctor Who with him. It's just that he wanted to play the
Speaking
Doctor.
of tabloids,
Yeah.
Yes. It says this is unverified, But
Yeah, this comes from the Sun, which is like getting your news from the National Enquirer.
okay.
Take it with many grains of salt.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
My salt shaker just ran out.
I only included it because it's not really so much out there as celebrity news, and it's not the usual kind of news you'd expect the tabloid to try to use to get ratings. So it leads me to believe that there is a grain of salt behind it, but I still cannot find verification on it. Anyway, go ahead, Tim.
So they are trying to complete the story Shada that was written by Douglas Adams, but abandoned due to I think it was a union strike.
Yeah, it was a full union strike by the technical union that shut down everything at the BBC for the end of that 1980 season.
So they're it looks like they're trying to animate the missing episodes, but the big news that they say is that Tom Baker has returned to record his lines.
The production of Shada was only about a third to half done. When the technical union strike occurred. So there was a whole bunch of stuff that was never filmed and lines that were never, actually spoken aloud. Shada has been redone a few times by Big Finish and a few other places.
Yep. It was also done over by narrating Tom.
Yep. But they released it on video with Tom Baker doing narration of what was supposed to happen. But none of these felt quite complete. Go ahead.
According to the article, Tom actually dressed up in his hat and scarf in the recording booth to get into character. Also, returning to finish the story, Lala Ward as companion Romana.
There's a couple of things that make me wonder about this. One of which is the fact that anything that's mentioned is quoted by an insider. And that's stuff that I take as, whenever I hear the words, an insider said, I'm like, seriously, you can't give a name. I don't trust it.
The bullshit artist in chief said that whenever someone says that a source said something, it's a lie. He would know. He's said that many times.
The insider says he wore his original costume, including coat, hat, and scarf, and the original K9 was here. And I'm wondering big about that last one.
I'm wondering if it's John or the prop.
Does that even exist? The original prop, or would it have been like dismantled or something?
I don't know. I know they have ways of making them, but I know at least there's at least one original style K9 prop around. But it wouldn't be in Tom Baker's possession. He hated the damn dog.
Right.
Well, that's because he had to work with it, and they couldn't get it to work right.
Also, I'm a little wondering if his original coat, hat, or at least his coat and scarf would still fit him. But then again, he's lost a lot of weight recently.
So it could.
I don't know if there's like a size limit on scarves.
The scarf, the coat would be an issue though. But it wouldn't be surprised if he had an updated version of it and the person just said,
and wore it, yeah.
But still, it's from an insider, and this whole thing is from the Sun. So, and they don't really say who's producing it.
That's also
which is another thing that I saw, and I almost didn't include this, but we were so low on news.
Yeah.
And I just tried to search like Uxbridge, West London, just to see if I could find anything related to the BBC or Big Finish. Nothing's coming up, which isn't really confirmation or denial in and of itself, but it lends itself to continuing not to have any source.
Yeah, it's something I'm royally hanky on. But it seemed to be such an odd thing to try to, lie about that it became noteworthy by itself to me.
Anyway.
Yep. So that moves us on to future Doctor Who alumni, because you can be an alumni with time travel even when you're not a star yet. We know this. Jodie Whittaker has been named the hottest television talent of 2017, the hottest British television talent, in a new annual list by the Radio Times. Interestingly, Radio Times is not our source, but that's okay.
No, I could have looked it up, but usually those kind of lists are published and not released on the internet.
Gotcha. And I'm trying to find more about why, but I'm not seeing it other than her role as Beth Latimer in Broadchurch series 1 through 3. I know she's been in at least one other role recently, but I'm not knowing it off the top of my head. If I can grab it quickly, I will.
Anyway.
Otherwise, also on the list are Sir David Attenborough, who was the second place. Phoebe Waller-Bridge was the third place. That name is familiar, but I don't know if it's connected to Doctor Who or not.
Phoebe Waller-Bridge. It sounds familiar to me too, but I'm kind of watch a lot of British TV these days, so.
Copy.
I've already got it.
Side search.
No, nothing from Doctor Who.
Okay. Looks like the other thing that Jodie has been in.
She's another Broadchurch character.
Oh, okay.
She's Abby.
Got you. That might be it. The other thing that Jodie has been in this year is a TV. Looks like either a miniseries or the first 4 episodes of a series named Trust Me, playing Kath and Allie.
Okay. And probably a good chunk of it is being named the first female Doctor as well.
Yeah, the hype probably had a lot to do with whoever was doing the judging. I think these lists might be fan write-ins or fan votes, or like reader votes above the Radio Times, so that would make sense.
I'm not sure. I mean, it's the Radio Times, so Radio Times is Britain's TV guide, so you can imagine this is the equivalent of a TV guide list.
Oh, Phoebe Waller-Bridge is also going to be in the young Han Solo movie.
Okay.
But that's about it for that piece, which moves us on to Randy's article.
All right. So, we've mentioned auctions in the past, and a few of them have had some exciting items. But I think none of them has ever been quite iconic as what is currently going up on auction now. At Prop Store Entertainment Memorabilia Live Auction. They are currently auctioning off on the 26th of September Sylvester McCoy's signature hat. His hat. The hat from the show.
We could collect his hair and clone him.
It is up for auction alongside a Necros Dalek model miniature from Revelation of the Daleks, which was a Colin Bacon story. Both are estimated to be sold for between £8,000 to £10,000.
Damn.
Stephen Lane, the prop store CEO, has said, "We're very pleased to be able to offer 2 iconic lots from classic Doctor Who as part of our live auction. These great items and hundreds more will go under the hammer at Big Prop Store Entertainment at the live auction 26 September at London's BFI IMAX, proudly presented by Odeon. It will be live stream online for fans to track the bidding on auction day. That's a cool feature."
I would assume with this Dalek miniature that this was probably a test miniature just so they knew what they were going to build.
No, it's might be a miniature prop used in for like when they would do like a pull-out model for something.
Because I can't remember anything that required a miniature for that particular story.
I can't either, but it doesn't mean that there wasn't one.
Doesn't mean that
He
it
might
wasn't
have
one,
used
but
a
also doesn't
miniature
mean that
for the
they.
stairs.
That was a different story. You're thinking the Professor McCoy story again.
No, both of
Oh,
them
sorry.
had
Am I wrong with looking at the? I was just looking at the pictures.
We just mentioned
Well-
it's from Revelation
Oh,
of the
I
Daleks.
see. It's from Revelation. Okay.
not
Mhm.
Remembrance, but both of
Yep.
them did have Daleks levitating. The special
Okay.
effect didn't work too well in Revelation, which is why they included it again in Remembrance.
And then pretended it was the first time in the 2005 version.
That's because the jokes of the Daleks being unable to go up a flight of stairs just continued throughout the Wilderness Age.
And Russell T Davies just said, "Let's nail this in the coffin right now."
And since then, we've had flying Daleks who just don't give a fuck anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why didn't they just fly all the time?
Yeah.
Well, they
They've
did.
upgraded.
I forget if they actually. I think they were implied to fly back in season 2 in 1966, but I don't think they actually did so on screen at the.
Not
They
that
had
I'm aware of.
UFOs. But yeah, essentially they upgraded and now they don't give a damn. They'll fly anywhere.
Anyway, like I said, this is September 26th, Prop Stores Entertainment Memorabilia Live Auction. If you're a big collector of Doctor Who memorabilia, you're not going to want to miss getting Sly's hat.
And that
Well, at
Dalek
least
mixture
trying
will be
to.
awesome too. You might want to put it under glass if you get it.
All right.
All right.
Moving right along.
Yep. All right. So it appears our spin-offs are getting spin-offs, and even the fan fictions have spin-offs now, or fan movies, or unofficial movies, or something. Anyway, coming out soon. Telos, the Damons of Devils End. This is the novelization to the new Doctor Who spin-off drama White Witch of Devil's End, which is itself a spin-off of the Kings or the Damons. There we go. 1971 Doctor Who adventure The Damons, starring John Pertwee as the Doctor. So, and the movie is being released. The Damons of Devil's End is being released by Real Time Pictures through Coke Media, via DVD on timetraveltv.com. Let's see here. So let's read the quick synopsis of this. Olive Hawthorne is the sole guardian of the sleepy village of Devil's End. She protects the world from the incursion of demons, vampires, aliens, and all manner of otherworldly creatures. But she is getting old, and they keep coming. This is the story of Olive's life from her earliest days through teenage years, middle age, and now old age. Tales of her adventures with monsters and evil, forever battling against the forces of darkness, and forever seeking to keep the world safe. Alright, so this will be an anthology, it looks like, containing 6 different stories. Yeah, well, 6 different authors, at least, will provide stories for these, all kind of short stories, I take it. So characters, an interesting thing is characters are used with permission of the relevant rights owners concerning the Demons of Devil's End. However, this book has not been licensed or approved by the BBC or any of its affiliates. So it's kind of interesting, like, and I don't know if you guys would consider this upcoming like film to be, is this a re-release of a previously made film, or is this like a brand new production?
It's a recent production.
Okay.
It's something that they've been coming out with, they said, within the last like couple of years or so.
Is it like a series of internet shorts or something that are pieced together?
No,
into a film,
they're
or?
releasing it on DVD. So
It's legitimately a fan film, at least to some degree. Possibly you have fan film with actual backing from the BBC.
No.
If they got the rights. Hello?
Time, which people.
Time.
Yeah.
Oh, there we
So
go. Hello.
it's quasi canonical, but it's not really
No.
backed by the BBC in any way.
It is non-canonical. It is based in their universe on canonical things. But the BBC, anything that's not underwritten by the BBC can't.
Just a moment. Oh, come on, Discord.
Them by name
There we go.
in Night of the Doctor. And we can argue this until I'm blue in the face.
That's
So let's do that.
No, Tim, no. That's a rabbit hole we're not going down.
And I'm back, so we might as well move along anyway.
Yeah, if you make me do that and my heart gives out and I die, legally you all could be
Sued. Dang it all. Wow. Whatever Discord is doing right now, it can really stop. Everything else seems to be fine.
Yes, there is a new release from Phantom series Who Talk. 2 new commentaries CDs. The first called Adventures in Time, which is a commentary for a collection of the William Hartnell era historical stories, including episodes from the Aztecs, the Romans, and the Crusade. Features Maureen O'Brien, who played Vicky, alongside the First Doctor, and she is joined in the commentary by William Russell, Julian Glover, Petra Markham, George Little, Kay Patrick, Ian Cullen, Clive Doig, and Brian Hodgson. The second commentary release is for the Pertwee era classic, The Claws of Axos. And we have a quote. Producer Paul W.T. Ballard explained why the story was chosen. The Claws of Axos might not have been the most obvious of choices to go for, but there was quite a few voices missing from the original commentary recorded over a decade ago. It was great to get the serial's director Michael Ferguson, script editor Terrence Dix, co-writer Bob Baker, and Axos himself, Bernard Hawley, commentate on the serial for the first time. We were also thrilled to welcome back Katie Manning and Richard Franklin. These CDs are limited and exclusively available at whotalk.co.uk. And both sets are now available. You can purchase them directly from Who Talk at a discounted price of £10.59 each, or via download price at $9.99. The special edition bundle will be available exclusively via this website, priced $39.99. Oh, and please note these commentaries contain no BBC copyrighted elements and do not feature any audio from the episodes themselves.
Yeah, essentially you just add you play the DVD and then add their audio, however way you wish to add it. Pretty much how Riff Tracks does the things these days.
All right. So let's move on to our Big Finish news.
So do you want to see a story featuring World Wars, Ben and Polly, but you don't want to wait until Christmas? Well, in the Early Adventures line, The Night Witches has released, starring Anneke Wills and Fraser Hines. This is the second Doctor, Ben, Polly, and Jamie in World War II. When the TARDIS materializes north of Stalingrad in 1942, the aforementioned people are captured by the Night Witches, an all-female unit of flyers tasked with disrupting the German forces nearing Moscow. They suspect that the travelers are spies, part of the Germans' Operation Barbarossa. Despite their pleas, they are locked up while it is decided what to do with them. Polly, however, is receiving strange looks from the pilots and clearly unnerving them. When the TARDIS crew discover why this is, it becomes clear that they're about to get far more involved in the war than they could possibly have imagined. Are you fine with those elements, but you really want to see Mark Gatiss before Christmas? Well, surprise, if you haven't been keeping up with the Unbound universe, Mark Gatiss is the actual real actor behind actor Sam Kisgart, who plays the Unbound Master. This is in the Bernice Summerfield range, ruler of the universe. Bernice Summerfield is still trapped in a dying universe with the wrong doctor. Things have taken a turn for the worse. The Doctor has become president of the universe, and it turns out he's a controversial choice for the job. While Bernice works to unearth the mythical apocalypse clock, the Doctor's immersed in the murky world of politics and the dark forces that are working against him. As battle fleets fight and terrible deals are done, the peoples of the universe wonder if they've made a terrible decision. Is the Doctor up to ruling the universe? Watching from the sidelines, the Master is quick to reassure everyone that he has no ambitions in that direction. And meanwhile, the stars are going out.
Don't they in every apocalypse? I mean, wasn't that the thing about...
Generally.
Yeah. Wasn't that the thing about,
Series 4?
Stolen Earth, Journey's End? Yeah.
Which means the Daleks are involved. Yay!
Okay.
It also
And
features
now-
David Warner.
Yeah, and he's starting to look really old. So now the big freaking news out of Big Finish. This is technically a upcoming release, but because of the staggering size of this news, I put it in news instead, and that is the fact that Big Finish has signed somebody new to their stable, and that is the fact that they have signed David Bradley to play the First Doctor in a new series of First Doctor adventures for Big Finish. As we know, David Bradley will be in the Christmas special with Peter Capaldi. He originally did the role in Adventures in Space and Time as actually being William Hartnell. And he will be doing this audio alongside his Adventures in Space and Time companions. Jamie Glover is playing Ian Chesterton. Gemma Powell is playing Barbara Wright, and Claudia Grant is playing Susan. So, and that's, by the way, not a bad choice for Susan.
Mm-hmm.
The First Doctor Adventures is due out in December. And Volume 1 will consist of The Destination Wars by Matt Fitton and The Great White Hurricane by Guy Adams. This will be followed up approximately 6 months later, closer to 7 it looks like, with Volume 2, The Invention of Death by John Dorney, and The Barbarians and the Samurai by Andrew Smith. So,
I have to say the news of the Master outweighs news of the casting of the Doctor in this article.
they actually mention the Master in this article?
It's
Oh, yes, I see
toward
it.
the bottom.
Yes, the
Oh,
first
sorry.
Doc-
Okay, you didn't mention that yet.
I'm kind of skipping around the article,
Gotcha.
hitting kind of notes. And yes, the First Doctor will encounter the Master in these stories, as played by James Dreyfus.
The first incarnation of the Master.
Yes.
There's apparently some debate as to whether this is the first incarnation that calls himself the Master versus the actual first incarnation. But the way they word it, I'm thinking it's actually the first incarnation of the Time Lord known as the Master, whether he's called that.
It's
to
kind
begin
of
with or
hard to
not.
tell. The Master blew most of his original lives because he would use them as disguises. One of his faces would become notariable, so he'd regenerate, so he could avoid the heat, so to speak. And because of that, he blew out most of his lives, which is why Delgado's Master was actually like the 13th Master, or something like that.
Yeah.
Is that canon or is that?
It's
Well,
mentioned.
yeah,
It's
It's
mentioned,
mentioned
in Deadly
frequently that
Assassin.
he went through them all
Okay.
really fast.
Well,
Yeah.
I think there's also.
They
I think
don't
it
mention
might
him as being the. They don't mention him specifically as being the 13th Master,
Hmm.
but we know the fact that after the Delgado Master, the next time we see him, he's that withered skull,
Right.
and that's because he's out of regenerations.
Yep. And I know Big Finish explained that as being a separate incarnation and having its own reason, but I don't think on screen they really explained whether it was the same incarnation rotted or a new incarnation.
They never really
Yeah.
did, and it's possible that he had regenerations between the Delgado era
Right.
and Deadly Assassin,
But-
considering the time frame.
Either way, this is our first, except for I think some novels. Not even I think, except for some novels, this is the first time pre-Delgado will have seen the Master.
Correct. I mean, there had been a lot of fan speculation over the years.
Well, I guess unless you count the little boy version in that flashback in the end of time.
Yeah. Actually, that was that flashback was actually in not Utopia, but the one after it.
Was it in both? Because I thought the whole thing about the Time Lords putting it in his head happened.
It was in Sound of Drums. It was in the chip shop.
Yeah.
Captain Jack asked them how the Great Society of Time Lords created a madman, and he does the whole Untempered Schism story there.
Right.
It's just explained in End of Time that it was Rassilon's doing, the fucking
Right.
prick.
Everything that happens bad is pretty much Rassilon's fault.
Oh yeah, Rassilon's a jackass. I thought we'd established that by now. But I mean, I can tell you that at least in the 90s, there was a great bit of fanon that the meddling monk was an earlier incarnation of the Master.
Which is not entirely impossible.
Which is a little silly when you compare their personalities and the fact that how easily the monk gets duped by the Doctor.
Well, that was supposed to be his early days, but
possible.
it was a bit of fanon speculation. It was never canon. It was purely fan theory at that point. And it's definitely gone out the window by now.
Yeah, but now the monk is definitely his own person.
Yeah. Because now they've fully established the fact that the Master and the Doctor actually knew each other from the days on Gallifrey, which had never really been established before. It was established that the Doctor and the Master knew each other, but never from where.
Speaking of which, is the concept of the Deca, is that from the novels?
The Deca?
Yeah, the whole thing about the Doctor, the monk, the Master, the Ronnie, and a few other renegade Time Lords all having known each other at the Academy as like a group of friends.
That is definitely not canon.
Right, yeah. I knew that. I'm wondering if it's from the novel.
It's established that the Doctor and the Ronnie were contemporaries, and the Master, I think, was a year or two behind or ahead.
I think he was ahead.
It was one or the other. It was one of those two that they were around the same thing. But as far as I'm aware, the Doctor and the Ronnie were acquaintances in the fact that they knew each other, but they were not friends. And the Master and the Doctor used to be friends, but that was apparently before their Academy days, when they were first growing up, before the age of, what was it, 7? Age of 8.
8, yeah.
Before the Master went nuts. But the Ronnie was always considered to be kind of an immoral bitch and got thrown out by her insane experiments. So, and there was nothing ever about the monk being... The monk is actually definitely not a contemporary of the Doctor's, considering he's from 50 years afterwards, so...
Yeah, apparently the monk comes from well after they are already all left Gallifrey.
So that is definitely fan speculation gone bad. That's somebody not doing their homework.
Naughty, naughty. Was it 50 years? I thought it was 5 years.
No, he says it's about
50 or
50,
so,
50
yeah.
50
years
or
ahead
so.
of.
Okay.
Because that's why he has a much later model TARDIS than the Doctor's.
Yeah.
Okay, so
That's it then?
that's the news.
Sweet.
I can't wait to get a hold of the First Doctor adventures, because that's going to be. We might have to schedule some of that after our in an upcoming season, not next season.
Yeah,
'cause
actually,
that's already
that
pretty.
that
That's
might
gonna be-
relate to what we were talking about with the schedule, and I hadn't really thought about it. So it may be worth at least considering.
Yeah, it might be something for season 10, but it's something we'll think about. Anyway, it's we're a little ahead of schedule, but there's nothing else really of note to talk about at the moment, unless anybody's seen a movie or anything they want to talk
I
about.
was going to say, if anyone's been to the movies.
Tried to
I
go
have
see
not.
it this last week, but vehicle was not available, so we couldn't go.
Stupid Aaron's work has Aaron working stupid 2 to 10 every Tuesday.
Ah.
So it's not like I can go see, not like we can go see a movie, because by the time we hauled her ass to the movie from a 2 to 10 shift, it's going to be one of those movies that we get out of at 2 in the morning and we're both about ready to die.
Yeah, or if we go beforehand, but then I've got to worry about getting out to work on time.
It's just absolutely the wrong shift to try to go to the theater.
Yeah,
of course-
absolutely. I mean, I tend to work a late night shift, and there's only one movie I've ever been able to see on a night that I worked that sort of shift, and that was a midnight screening.
And like I said, I hate midnight screening because I get out of the midnight screening and I'm like dead.
Well,
and if the movie is not good, you're dying in the theater. You're
Yeah.
like, oh fuck. I remember going to see. It was a year before I was going to ASEN. I remember seeing the second Matrix movie in a midnight screening. And I thought, oh great, it's going to be the second Matrix movie. It's going to be so cool.
Oh.
Everyone's going to be talking about it. And I get in there, it's like, what the fuck is this? This is fucking boring.
See, I didn't really mind the second one. It was the third one that I've had issues with, but the second one I didn't find to be as good as the first, but I never
Mind you-
disliked it as much as other people.
Mind you, I'm trying to watch this in a screening where I've been up for at least almost 24 hours by that point, because I'm excited because I'm going to a con. So I have trouble sleeping.
Gotcha.
Yeah, the only way that I could stay up for a midnight screening is if I play an MMO beforehand.
Since we're not specifically on a topic, and I have it open in front of me, apparently the idea of the Deca was created by Gary Russell, writing a novel for BBC Books, and of course Gary Russell went on to be the first executive producer of the main range for Big Finish Doctor Who, so that's how that got incorporated there. So it's his fault.
It's his fault.
And I
'cause
agree that it's not exactly a good idea.
It did not do the research.
Well, it's not very realistic either. I mean, I know it wraps everything up in a nice little bow.
But wraps up
But
things
it's-
too nicely. It's just
Yeah,
doesn't feel
it's
natural.
not messy enough to make it realistic.
It was the members were Drax, Theta Sigma.
Well,
Oh,
Drax.
actually, no, either the Ronnie. Actually, okay, some of them are. It's their everyone's former names, but the Ronnie, the War Chief, the Monk, and the Master.
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
and there's a few
Then
problems.
they
with
included
that.
even more people, and it's just like, no, this is stupid. This is very blatantly stupid.
Nobody really knew who the Ronnie was, or excuse me, who the War Chief was.
Mhm.
Everybody knew who the Ronnie was, but nobody was really friends with her because she's not the friends person. She's the person that works all the time in the lab, and if you try to talk to her, basically treats you like an insect. She's just, "Ugh, you're wasting my time.
You're in my way. You're wasting my time. Get out of here.
Mhm.
Let me do my work. So yeah, just a dumb idea. Let's move on, shall we? Stopwatch is ready.
Yeah. Okay.
We're just hit the hour mark.
Who's doing it?
Not it.
I did last week.
I know you did.
Which leaves only 3 of you.
I know it's technically my turn. My brain is trying to pull together enough of the episode because I was dead tired when I watched it. Okay. Okay, I guess I can try to do it.
Okay. Ready when you are.
All right, go ahead.
All right, start in 3, 2, 1, go.
All right, so we start off on the planet Gallifrey in the constellation Castorberus, where a Time Lord that we can't tell who is stealing the Doctor's biodata and transmitting it. Unfortunately, a technician stumbles across this theft and he is killed for his diligence. At this point, we basically cut to Amsterdam with a couple of teens that are basically, looks like they're basically trying to do the Hitchhiker's Guide to Europe. They check into their hostel and discover it's not going to be ready, so they wind up staying in a what did they call it? A pump house that was made out of an old
Yeah.
Essentially a sewage station right next to that helps run a fountain right next to a underground mausoleum.
Yep.
Mhm.
And there they discover something very freaking weird happening. And what could only be described to me as a giant chicken turned inside out comes out of a doorway made of light, captures one of them, and the other one escapes. Meanwhile, Gallifrey is up in arms about what's going on. And the Castellan and his chief toady, Commander Maxwell, decide to take matters into their own hands and pulls the recall circuit on the Doctor's TARDIS. The Doctor has been making some minor fixing to the TARDIS in the meantime, but is unable, of course, to stop the recall, which sends him to Gallifrey, and after being shot once by Maxwell, is taken where he, well, first of all, I forgot to mention in the TARDIS, there's a brief antimatter surge as a being tries to merge with him. This sets off the Time Lords into recalling him and then deciding he needs to be executed. And they do actually take him to a vaporization chamber and attempt to vaporize him. Meanwhile, Tegan Jovanka arrives in Amsterdam and meets up with the survivor of these teens. The other one who's missing is her cousin. So they go back to investigate this crypt, and they discover Colin there hypnotized, working for said inside-out bird, which is, of course, still armed with a blaster. They're rendered unconscious by the thing. The bird thing scans Tegan's mind and discovers that she has a relationship to the Doctor. This is good because the Doctor has actually been beamed into the Matrix, where this creature is currently residing, and basically uses Tegan as a leverage tool to basically have the Doctor not to interfere with his plans. Like that's going to work. The Doctor is then returned to Gallifrey in one piece. The rest of the Time Lords have basically discovered that yes, the Doctor's data was beamed. This is part of some collusionary plan. At first, the High Council thinks it's President Barusa that's there, but it turns out that it's Counselor Hedden, an old friend of the Doctor that is in league with the Renegade, now known to be Omega. Yes, the guy from the Three Doctors. Hedden wants to help release Omega from his, antimatter universe where the Doctor had exiled him to after his last attempt to escape. The Doctor, of course, warns that Omega is abso-freaking-lutely insane. However, the Castellan, in his zeal, winds up killing Hedden. But unfortunately, it's too late to stop Omega, who is ready to transfer to the real world, only they don't know where. The Doctor uses the Matrix to talk to Tegan again, discovers that she's in Amsterdam, and basically tracks down the Omega's TARDIS, which I guess was given to him by Hedden, and tries to stop him from transferring. He's too late, and he basically becomes a copy of the Fifth Doctor. He runs out and is pursued by Tegan and Nyssa and the Doctor, but he doesn't start lasting long and starts devolving into this, well, Rice Krispie-faced creature. Who the Doctor eventually chases down and is forced to use Omega's own matter converter to end him and end the threat. The end. Oh, and Tegan decides to travel with the Doctor again.
One extra second on that. All right, you got it in about 5 minutes, 11 seconds. Just a smidge over.
Yep.
So the time we had to ask the question in the beginning pretty much is what put it over.
Yep.
By the way, I would have described what Omega would turn into as more of a living chia pet.
Actually, I actually got that from the making of documentary that was in the DVD extras.
Yeah,
it's how Peter Davidson described that makeup that he and later Ian Collier had to put on as being basically Rice Krispie face paint.
I'm sure the texture of it was, but it didn't look like it. Then again, some of what we have to watch isn't exactly the highest resolution either.
No.
It looked more mossy to me, and it just kind of, the more we saw it, the more I'm like, that's a living chia pet. He's gone moldy. Might as well toss him out.
That's what, if you thought so, that's what you should have done for the opening bump.
I should tell you what else I should have used for the opening bump. The Doctor's supposed buddy in the inner circle there. I forget the council.
Hedden.
Yeah, you realize who that is, right?
Yes, it's frickin' Michael Gough. It's frickin' Alfred from the Tim Burton Batman movies.
Yup. Should have done that too.
Who is also the Celestial Toymaker.
Yes, he is.
And by the way, did you know that he's married? He was married at one point to trying to remember her name, Anarchy Wills.
See, my thought for an opening bump watching this is watching that creature come out of the light thing, and cutting to an old episode of Animaniacs with a guy going, "It's a chicken, a giant chicken."
See, we came up with all these interesting ideas after.
The problem is I haven't watched the serial in like years, and I didn't get to watch it till this
Also,
afternoon.
while you describe it as a chicken, from a side profile up close, it kind of looks like a horse as well.
It actually kind of reminds me of a space pirate from Metroid.
Yeah, it's Ridley.
Specifically, the thing it's referred to as an ergon.
I know what it's referred to.
Yeah.
I was referring
Which is
to
funny
what it
because
looks-
that's
You're referring to its
funny because
design.
that's actually the name of like an electricity thing here in Australia, ergon energy, which is pretty funny. It's spelt the same way too.
Which makes sense when you consider that it's being run by it's being commanded by the symbol for electronic resistance or electrical resistance. I mean,
So you might want to take that as possibly the fact that the owner of the company was a Doctor Who fan. Just saying, it's possible.
It's a horse with teeth.
Anyway,
Sharp fangs.
So-
You can reach about. Look at the
who's our
bones.
first on the dice?
so all right, so we're going with what we like about the episode, and first up is Matt.
Ooh. What I liked. Oh, what do I want to go with? Actually, you know what? I'm gonna go with the costuming. The costuming was very varied in this one. there's a different Omega, which is close enough for you to go, yeah, I guess that could be Omega.
Mhm.
There's the weird creature that he has running around that apparently has psychic abilities, which from some angles looks somewhat effective. From other angles, it looks like they must have switched actors and the neck's a little bit floppy. But then you also have the Time Lords, which while reusing some of their previous designs, they obviously took the time and effort to repaint them and redecorate them.
Actually, remake them.
They did remake some of them, yeah.
Yeah, because the thing about those collars, the Time Lord collars, is they were made from fiberglass and had to be custom fitted.
Oh, yeah. So in other words, each time the new actor was on, either they had to pull up the old one and see if it fit, or they'd had to make a totally new one.
Mm-hmm.
And I assume the helmets weren't much better.
Probably not. Probably also made from fiberglass.
Yep, and I'm sure they had to make a whole new one for Colin Baker.
They had to make the one with the frickin' feather on it.
Mm-hmm. Like I said, they had to make a whole new one for him.
Apparently, it caused Colin Baker to make no end of jokes on the set. He'd carry that. First of all, the helmet was with the feather was too tall for him to go through the doors in the set.
Yeah, which is why he's carrying it most of the time.
Constantly, and he would walk around with this thing at the feather under his arm, going.
I forget exactly what he called it, but he actually did give it a name.
He gave it a name.
Yeah.
What do you call it?
I don't know. We'd have to rewatch the commentary, and like I said, I was half asleep when I watched it. So.
Dang it.
I just remember him making those chicken noises and apparently cracking everybody up. Apparently, there was one thing that every time in rehearsal, they could not get through the scene because Colin Baker was just causing them to go into riots.
Like I said, Colin's a troll even on set.
Okay. Bill, what did you like about the episode?
I like the concept of the plot in the part where the main threat to the Doctor is the fact that the Time Lord's only idea of how to stop this potential antimatter explosion is to kill the Doctor. And as much as it makes you not like the Time Lords, I like the idea of that sort of conflict from the Doctor's perspective.
Yes, but did they have to enjoy it so much?
No, but Maxwell just was having a good old time.
But you have to relish it.
Okay, Thomas, what did you like about the episode?
I like that. As far as I can tell, outside of maybe Earthshock, I think this is the only one I've seen Nyssa in, so this is more like a reintroduction for her to me, and the fact that she actually had so much to do comparatively to what you would get, because she was like the only companion.
Yeah, exactly. This is the only episode where she is the sole companion.
So she actually does like quite a lot and gets a lot of scenes where she's just doing her own thing. So it was really nice to see, though. I guess given the person who wrote this is the person who wrote her the first time she showed up, probably explains that a lot.
Yeah, I mean, if you really think about it, the first episode where she appeared, Keeper of Traken, where she wasn't even planned to be a companion, she was paired up with the companion Adric. And then her first actual companion episode where she signs on as Legopolis, which still had Adric and introduced Tegan at the same time. And then it was Adric and the girls until Earthshock, and then it was Nyssa and Tegan, and then Tegan left in Time Flight, and then this happened, and then Tegan signs on again. And then they pick up Turlo. And then she leaves. Yes, Turlo actually drove Nyssa off the TARDIS. I mean, that you can kind of see that. And then eventually drove Tegan off the TARDIS too. And then he left. After going, Doctor, this is Perry. Perry, Doctor. I'm gone. So, yeah, it's nice to have Nissa have the episode where it is. And I am of the opinion that 3 companions is a bit much for the Doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just from a writing standpoint. I know that's what they started with, is Susan, Ian, and Barbara.
That was also in an era where it took you a month and a half to tell a story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You had plenty of character time if you really needed it.
Actually, in that point, it sometimes took 2 months to 3 months to tell a story.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look at freaking.
Only one story was 3 months at that. Well, two stories if you count the war game.
Yeah, but if you look at it, it was not uncommon for episodes to be 7 or 8 episodes in length back then.
Mm-hmm.
Look at like the Daleks.
Yeah.
So it's quite possible that that you will be telling the story for 2 months, and you can have people do stuff and get some storyline done there. But then you get down to the compressed format of 4 months with the occasional 6-parter, or 4 episodes with the occasional 6-parter. And yeah, the writing got compressed down, and really it's better for the Doctor to have 1, maybe 2 companions than have the 3, because at that point things get a little writing complicated. I mean, the early 4th Doctor era managed to pull it off okay with the Doctor, Harry, and Sarah. Because then you'd have the Doctor doing stuff, and then Harry and Sarah would be doing stuff and bouncing off each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think in the modern era, when you had the Doctor, Rose, and Mickey, or the Doctor, Rose, and Jack, it was still decent to do an episode like that. Or the Doctor, Amy, and Rory.
Yeah.
That you didn't get writing cramped trying to have everybody do everything. But when you have that 3, you start to see the writers going, I have too many characters to know what to do with them all.
Let's just tie one to the TARDIS.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a reason the Boomtown team didn't get a season, and that River Song was never a full-time companion, thankfully.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Tim, you're up next. What did you like about the episode?
I really liked how streamlined and simple the story was, and it was very easy to follow for me.
Probably would have been easy for me too if I hadn't been falling asleep.
Probably.
But it seemed like there was nothing extraneous about the episode, so it was like it was very simple, and I think that was a good thing.
I mean, it was no offense to the episode that I was falling asleep. I just spent an hour and a half at the doctor's office getting poked and prodded and my blood pressure taken and all this other wonderful stuff, and I was full of Taco Bell at the time, so.
So you were tired of being pushed around. You were also just recently fed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Coma tries to take place.
And it was frickin' 90 degrees outside.
That's right. It was humid as hell today.
Mm-hmm. And my body, unfortunately, at that point of time, it's just like, okay, it's 4 p.m. sleep.
Yeah. All right, that was Tim's. He liked the pacing.
Aaron's next.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and say I actually enjoyed Colin Baker. So, I mean, no one plays a good asshole like Colin Baker.
This is true. This is true.
And he did it very convincingly. I mean, yeah. He still kind of comes off as very stiff, but a character that is so devoted and so single-minded like that is going to come off as kind of a little bit stiff, inflexible, not very simple acting is needed for it, but it was still effective, and it made actually for a decent red herring, I think. Even though everybody knows who the real villain is, but it's easy to forget that Omega has an accomplice that's in with the High Council or one of the other Time Lords wandering around. So And I think, having Maxwell set up and also the Castellan set up as red herrings, it really played out pretty good, and especially with Maxwell. He made for a pretty good kind of antagonist, I should say.
Yeah.
Colin Baker is actually known prior to his stint in Doctor Who for playing great assholes on television. He was in the soap opera, the British soap opera, The Brothers, which started in 1972, and he joined up in its fourth series. It had 7. As a character called Paul Maroney. The thing about Paul Maroney is there's been a lot of comparisons between the soap opera The Brothers and the American soap opera Dallas. And basically in the fact that they held that same popularity level.
Yeah.
And Colin Baker's character Paul Maroney was basically British J.R. Ewing. He was a loathsome financial wizard proto-yuppie, is how they describe him on Wikipedia. And he had and like J.R. Ewing, he had like no moral compass whatsoever, and would do anything to better himself financially.
Anything for a buck.
And the thing is, even years after he had been in this show, he would walk down the street and old ladies would run up to him and hit him with their purses or their umbrellas because they knew him as Paul Maroney from The Brothers.
So he was typecast.
Oh, yes.
Oh, he was heavily typecast until he played the Doctor.
Interestingly enough, somebody else was on The Brothers, and that was Kate O'Mara. Was also in there, and she, of course, would later go on to play the Ronnie. So,
but certainly now that makes sense of a line where she said that they used to be old sparring partners, and she liked the fact that the Ronnie got to kill his doctor.
I believe Colin Baker also made mention of the fact that Sylvester McCoy got to be threatened by Kate O'Mara, lucky bastard.
Anyway.
Who's next?
Actually, it would be me.
Yeah, it was Aaron, so the anyone left to be Randy.
And what I liked about the episode is its sense of continuity, in a way. It kept making references to previous episodes, and this was part of the 20th anniversary season.
Yeah.
So this is why there were so many references, but it was nice to see them because they actually made sense.
They actually gave a care.
Unlike with the 50th anniversary season, where they would throw in a reference for just being a reference. Each reference made in this one had its purpose.
Yep. Renegade, Time Lord. Did they reference any of the other Gallifrey serials, other than, of course, the Three Doctors?
They referenced Brain of Morbius.
Right.
The fact, and this one I'm not sure should be correct, continuity or not, is the fact that the Doctor still remembered presidential codes, which the only time he would have done that was when he was president in the Invasion of Time, which he supposedly forgot all about. But it was a nice throw out nonetheless.
And he looked very confused and frustrated trying to remember. So
and actually, speaking of which, there was a reference to Invasion of Time when he asked about Leela.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I am.
There's also
I'm half convinced. I'm not 100% convinced, but I'm half convinced that the character of Damon was originally supposed to be Andred, but they couldn't get his actor.
I would not be remotely surprised.
Pretty much.
Did Damon appear in another serial, or did they make him up as...
He was entirely in this serial.
So
Yeah,
he was probably a rewritten android, considering he plays the role android would have played.
Yes.
Quite probably, yeah. Although Android would have actually been one of the guards still.
No, but I mean in terms of
But in
his
terms of what the
interactions with the
plot
Doctor.
needed, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Being the Doctor's friend and helping him out like that, and bringing up Leela.
Yeah, I know. It's just like, well, how does Damon know Leela? I guess if they,
if they were all
happened to
actually
meet
friends of the
or-
Doctors, then obviously they would have crossed paths eventually.
Yeah, it would have been nice if they could have made it Android. That would have actually been a nice continuity nod.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of makes me wonder what Luis was doing that week. Oh, not in Amsterdam. Well, no, they probably filmed that in.
No, the Gallifrey
London,
scenes
right?
were all filmed on the soundstage in London.
The usual
I know
soundstage
this.
in London.
I know this because in these special features, Colin Baker was moaning and groaning about how the rest of the cast got to go to Amsterdam. But no, not him and his character. All of his seeds were on the London stage set. Anyway, I just like those continuity nods. So what we didn't like about the episode, and Matt, you're up first.
Didn't like about the episode.
Pick one.
What I'm gonna go with for the episode. Actually, you know what? It's been a really long time, and I can't even remember the last time I saw this particular story. But I immediately sat there and went, the guy in the orange is a little too friendly. So I pretty much called the plot twist without even remembering what the plot twist was.
Oh yeah.
Plus, they actually, when I watched it back the second time, they do not disguise his voice very well in the scenes where he's talking to Omega.
They disguised it a little bit, enough that I couldn't make it out at first, and then
Yeah,
I just saw how friendly he was.
I
It's just
couldn't
like,
make it out until...
all the Time Lords sound alike to me.
Yeah, they all sound pompous and very British.
I called it, and I didn't remember the plot line that much, but yes, this is my old friend Hedden, and I'm like, he did it. That was just
my old friend Hedden. Boo.
All right. So, Bill, how about you? What do you not like about it?
So, I'm going to go with the first thing that bothered me, and that is that the opening felt like I started on episode 2 and not in a suspenseful, dramatic way, but just in a way where it's just like nothing, like it doesn't seem to be either written or directed with proper gravitas for what's going on. Like, it's not written in such a way to draw your attention and be like, you should be concerned about what's going on with this guy in the mask. And the sound is, like the score and the direction doesn't seem to compensate for that. And it, like I said, it kind of felt like I had started on episode 2, and if I didn't know better, I would have thought that's what happened, but it wasn't.
Okay, I didn't really feel like that, but I don't know. It might have just been how that era tended to pick up on episodes. I don't know.
Possibly.
Thomas,
Yeah.
How about you? What didn't you like about the episode?
It's funny because it's one of those things where I have quite a few, but obviously I have to go with one. So I'm just going to go with the early Amsterdam plot, because my god, that went absolute. It felt like it. I just kept groaning every time it would come up, because I'd be like, "Come on, just get to the point of this story thread." It just seemed so dragged out to me.
It was.
Get on with it.
It was.
Yeah,
It
and
was.
it was just.
I mean, they could have cut straight to the two teens going into the pump house to stay and running into the monster, and cut a good 6 minutes off of that first episode.
Yeah, it was sorry, and like some of the acting in it as well is just a bit iffy to start with. I remember the first scene with them being like, "Oh, great, I've got to put up with these two for however long this story goes." And like even when it gets to the conclusion of that, like for them, I'm still like, I this should have been heavily cut down. I'm way more interested in the other plot. So, like, stop showing this so much, please.
Okay, Tim, how about you? What did you not like about this episode?
I could have used with more chicken guy. or at least more variety of chicken people.
Yes, but
More
that would
chicken
have involved
horse.
them having a higher budget.
Yeah.
More budget, more rubber.
And mind you, they just came off of Time Flight, an episode where they had to produce for the last season, where they basically wrote the episode and then discovered they had no money for it. Yeah, that was particularly bad.
Which is why their
We'll
outdoor
review that
shots
one
were once
eventually.
set with a painting in the background.
Yeah. We'll get to that episode eventually. We'll talk about that one, but that one had some issues.
Oh, it has issues.
All right, Aaron, how about you? What did you not like about this episode?
I felt that oh my god, was just not very impressive at all. He was just sitting around all the time. The only time that I did feel kind of intimidated with him was when he was in the reverse image, because that was kind of a neat little trick. You know, it's kind of dumb 80s special effects and kind of cheap still, but he at least had that I'm sitting on a throne type feel.
It's
yeah,
an easy
but
effect.
That just made him feel Black Guardian to me.
Yeah.
It's an easy effect to pull off, but somehow Peter Davidson actually made that work, kind of.
Peter Davidson?
Yeah, with the fake with him doing the Omega.
No, I'm talking
you're
about
talking
the
about something
reverse
else?
image.
When they showed him on a screen and they
with the
color.
reverse
when it was
holographic
the
image.
whole,
Okay, I see what you're talking about. Okay,
Mhm.
sorry,
the negative image
you said
shield or
reverse
whatever.
image, and I'm like the split between Peter Davidson's. Okay.
No. It's the when they I'm talking
When
in
he's
like
hologram.
Photoshop terms in
Yeah, when they hit
Reverse
Control
color.
I in Microsoft.
yeah.
Actually, Photoshop might use the same.
I do agree with you, by the way, Aaron. Omega's a lot less impressive here than he is in the Three Doctors.
Yeah.
He just seems
seems
so weak. He's sitting in the chair. He's waiting for stuff to happen. We're waiting for stuff to happen as well. He's supposed to be the big bad. Emperor Palpatine was more intimidating than him.
I could see that. I could see him sitting behind the scenes, because that's kind of the way he was in the Three Doctors too.
He was very much a
there was
mastermind character.
There was also scenes where it was like, oh, you should do this. You know what? You're right. I'll just do that. And then there was also the scenes where like all of the Time Lords know his plan is going to fail, and he's like,
From what I can tell,
come across as a genius villain.
Ian Collier could not pull off Omega as well as who played him in the Three Doctors. He couldn't get that level of
grandiose.
Grandiose, but also crazy.
Mm-hmm.
In a way, I think that's kind of whether people like it or not. I'm not saying like it was necessarily a good thing or not, but it seems that the point was the writer thought that in the Three Doctors the character was far too one-dimensional, or something, and then it was trying to, whether he succeeded or failed, like the idea was trying to make the character more than just the shouting, just the
shouting crazy person,
one-dimensional shouting villain.
I like the fact that they tried to, well, not humanize him, but they tried to, mortalize him, where, he's watching the little organ on the street and everything with the kids, so
they tried to humanize him,
his life again.
Yeah.
But they needed to play up his villainous side in order to have his humanity, or not his Gallifreyan mortal self or whatever, have a kind of similar impact. So I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. So I had a couple things I didn't like about the episode. One, I want to invert Matt's and I did not like the costuming in this. The Time Lords were okay.
The Time Lords were particularly really good. Like I said, the rubber suit for the horse chicken thing can be really good or really bad depending upon who was in it and the scene you're in.
And that and Omega's outfit, I didn't like either one of them.
Omega's outfit is okay for a little while, but after a while it starts to kind of fade on you too.
It felt, those particular pieces of costuming felt like the costuming department didn't even really try. And I mean, if you look at what the chicken creature is supposed to be, based on its descriptions, it shouldn't have looked anywhere near that.
Well, that's a funny
Ouch.
thing. From what I've watched, they basically just said that they didn't give any descriptions for it, so it was the costuming. People
It's
just kind of going for it.
except for there was a description of dialogue where it was his failed attempt at something or other, and it should have looked more humanoid than it did.
Oh, that's right. It was supposed to be like a failed attempt by Omega to make himself physical, essentially.
Yes. So it should have had more humanoid features, and instead it just goes out into a chicken space pirate thing. And Omega's costume really didn't do it for me. I mean, as to why he looked like he did as opposed to how he looked in the Three Doctors.
Yeah, I actually would have preferred the old cardboard cutout look.
Yeah, they apparently made a new costume to keep it secret, but they drop like 3 hints in the first 10 minutes as to who it is, so anybody who's old enough to, to recognize the costume would also know who he is.
It's like I'd quickly mention another thing I didn't like is in the Time Lord Council chamber thing. They've all got like very blatantly office wear looking seats. Like chairs that they're sitting in. It's like, what the shit? This is supposed to be like
it
main
wasn't
council
chairs.
of the Time Lord.
There were sofas. There were sofas everywhere on Gallifrey.
Specifically, like even when the Time Lord president sits down, he's just like sitting in this chair that you could probably go out and buy like right now. It's like, what the shit?
At the British equivalent of IKEA.
Look like the lounge at the Holiday Inn.
British equivalent of IKEA, Bill, is IKEA.
Okay.
They have it. They have it any more than we do.
My other issue with the episode is there was entirely too much running. And I'm talking
that wasn't
as opposed to
the
plot.
trainer's doctor has a lot of... Oh, okay.
It's like the whole scene at the end where they're chasing down the Omega Peter Davidson clone. That went on forever.
That could have cut off like in half.
And that was the doctor running, chasing, and almost catching up, losing him, finding him, running after him, repeat.
It's not every day. Yeah. It's not every day Peter gets to do the chasing and not the running.
And then there was all the running in the corridors on Gallifrey too, so it's just
and apparently like most of that running stuff wasn't actually even in like the original
script. It was them padding for time. Yeah. And Nissa hates the running scenes, by the way, because
Sarah
Sutton, because she's the Peter Davidson is tall, long-legged. Tegan, Janet Fielding's taller than she is, so she's the short one with the smaller legs. So
and she has to run harder to keep up with everybody.
She's always last. You'll notice in the running scenes.
And they're running on cobbled roads mostly, so.
You'd think Janet Fielding would have had a hard time with Tegan since she's running around in heels, wasn't she?
Not in this one. She has flats.
She does have flats? I thought it was heels.
Yeah, because they got out of the air stewardess outfits. Since she was back to civvies.
It's hard to tell what she has on her feet in that outfit. I keep forgetting what she has for footwear.
Yeah, she has similar footwear to Nissa.
All right. So favorite scenes, Matt.
Oh, favorite scene. It was kind of 10th Doctor-y for me. The scene with the 5th Doctor and Omega out on that dock on the pier, and essentially it's the 5th Doctor giving him one more chance to either turn himself in or he'll just have to kill him on the spot because he has to save the universe. It's something that the 10th Doctor would do quite a bit.
How that fit into the Doctor's morality.
I think the 5th Doctor in particular suffered a lot of those where he had to literally do the...
basically pointing a gun at somebody and going, surrender now or I shoot.
I mean, I think it also had a lot to do with the fact that he knew if he didn't shoot, not only would Omega die anyway, but other people would too. So it's not like he was killing Omega, but containing it.
I know,
Mhm.
but it's still if you look at what it looks like, that thing looked like a gun,
Yeah.
and he had to
No, I
point
get
shoot
you.
it. Mm-hmm.
He also had a scene where he ordered Nissa to shoot someone, which the Doctor normally would not want to do as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can kind of really smell the stench of soured.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I would also argue that the Doctor using weapons started to become a thing with the Third Doctor anyway, so it's not surprising it would eventually come back.
Anyway, Bill, how about you? What's your favorite scene?
So, I like the scene where the Doctor and Omega in the Doctor's form are facing off against each other, and I kind of wish that more of the serial was like that, not with the running and hiding part, but just Peter Davison facing off against Peter Davison.
Yeah,
That was my second runner. Because
okay,
they did Peter Davison did a really good job with that scene in particular.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring up that in a little bit as not taken. Thomas?
You know, it's probably pretty obvious, but just the "Hello, I'm the Doctor" shot. I laughed so hard the first time I watched that.
Zap! Plop!
Yeah, Peter Davidson now swears that Colin Baker had a twinkle in his eye when he did that scene. Now, the "I'm after your job, bitch" kind of look.
I'm imagining the Doctor looking at Maxwell and saying, "What a handsome man! I wish I looked like that."
Zap! Maybe less.
Well, that's Tim's view from Colin Baker's point of view. All right. So, Tim, how about you? What's your favorite scene?
The scene that really stuck with me, where Omega is wandering around the streets of Amsterdam, and he sees I believe it's called a calliope.
It is actually called something else, but that might be just another name for calliope.
Yeah, and then he looks at the boy, and the boy smiles, and he smiles back, and he's like, "This is nice. This is quaint.
This is nice and quaint. I don't mind this. Life is good to be back in it again. Hey."
Yeah.
For a moment.
It is. And this was going to be mine, and you took it.
I'm sorry.
And it's the fact that you can really. Peter Davidson has a chance there to show his acting chops, and he does. Because you can tell that's not the Doctor's expression.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it is nice, and it's creepy at the same time.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's almost sinister a little bit at first. Then he just kind of ignores the kid and keeps watching.
Yeah, like apparently that whole moment is supposed to kind of be an homage to Frankenstein in some way.
It is supposed to very well be
before he threw the little kid in the water.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's that same kind of moment. Because they mention what it's called in the behind the scenes bit, and I'm trying to find it, and I'm not finding what it's called.
Yeah, neither can I.
But it sounded something like Hurly Durly or something like that, and that's not what it was. But it's something weird like that. And
what were you talking about?
The little calliope like organ that he was standing in front of.
Oh, it's actually playing a song. It's the Tulips of Amsterdam.
Yes, but what's the instrument, or what's the machine called?
It's a street organ. That's what it's called.
They called it something else too, and I was trying to find it.
Yeah. I don't know.
It might be a street nickname for it, but yeah, it's essentially it's basically a form of a fairground organ, really. But of course, made specifically to be used on the street. But there is a popular nickname for it, but I cannot.
Anyway.
All right. So let's see. That was Tim's. Aaron, how about you? What was your favorite scene?
My favorite scene is actually when the bird creature is silhouetted in the doorlight when we first see it, and it comes kind of walking out of the TARDIS, and that's like probably my favorite scene because that's one of the few times where that costume actually looks fairly intimidating and scary.
Like I said, when you use it in the right lighting.
Yeah, like I think the overall thing like is just that the lighting for both the Ergon and the and Omega was just too bright. They needed to be cast in shadow a lot more.
Yeah, they need to make the lighting a lot more sinister for the two of them.
Especially if he's in a TARDIS that's just kind of sitting here, kind of just slightly protected by the Ark. But anyway, I expected the TARDIS to be a little bit more decrepit, and maybe in a little bit more low lighting would be kind of cool, just to make it look like it's on emergency lighting or something.
Which they did in the episodes, so they kind of failed at their own lighting.
Yeah.
They should have done the same lighting but switched to colors. Like
yeah,
a deeper
they
red or
just,
something.
No, they shouldn't have had the green cast on the
Yeah,
color
the green
yet.
was not working for them.
Yeah, they needed to just have it be like a yellow light or something like that.
Well,
with
yellow or a red or
really deep
something, yeah.
shadows, yeah.
They always tried to change the color of everyone else's TARDISes so that you could differentiate it from the Doctor's TARDIS.
Well, if it was
The
red,
master,
it would be
the
much
master,
more.
the master had, I think, a black motif in his.
Well, no, I'm talking about the lighting.
I am
like
too.
the lighting for Omega would be. I don't know. Like his TARDIS was obviously just kind of the same whitish TARDIS, wasn't
That's
it?
because it was the same set.
It was the same set, but they tried to color it with lighting, and it just didn't work.
Yeah, because what they did with the Master's TARDIS is they put blackboard behind the spaces behind the roundels to make it look darker and more sinister. And then I think in a later version of the Master's TARDIS, they replaced all the white bits around the roundels with black. So.
And they also would eventually replace his center console with a dark one, didn't they?
I'm
or at
not
least
sure they ever
added
went
something
that far.
to it. No, I'm pretty sure they added something to it, and then they went to full beyond even that with the Ronnie.
Yeah, the Ronnie had a completely different set.
Mm-hmm.
Or if it was really redressed.
Highly redressed, if anything, yeah.
But no, at this point, whenever they showed someone else's TARDIS, they tried to change the lighting or the roundels to make it look different.
And depending on who was in charge, it could have worked or it could have utterly failed.
Yeah, and the green really didn't work too well.
Mm-mm.
All right. So I'm gonna skip mine because Tim took it. Worst scenes, Matt.
Oh, worst scene. Chicken Horse walks in by Tegan and company, and you just see not only the air holes in the neck, but you can see that apparently they have a different guy in the suit because his head doesn't even work right.
For a second, I thought you were about to take my scene.
Like
the first half of that sentence.
Oh no. I'm actually going to even show a picture here. Like, I'm going to share it with you guys as well as share it on my end here. This thing, you could just see the creases in the neck. You could tell somebody that's not the normal guy is in there, and he doesn't quite fit.
Only one guy is actually credited as playing the Ergon.
Then whoever was doing set dressing for this poor guy let him on set looking like this.
Or it's also quite possible that between the scenes that they did with that, they didn't store the helmet pit properly, and something got put on top of it or something.
Yeah, because the neck is like way too flexible. It looks like it gets crushed easily.
Whatever they did to the neck, it's just awful, and it ruins the effect completely after that point.
Yeah, the top bit also looks like they've flattened it a bit, but granted, apparently it kept knocking off when they
that's
walked
right.
Doors,
Every time they had to walk through that door, that knocked the damn helmet off.
Oh, so I bet you because they kept running into that door, the guy in the suit just kept clunking his head because it wasn't actually hitting him directly. and so they ruined the neck and warped the head.
Mm-hmm.
Yikes. You need to be
Yeah.
careful about that. There should have been someone on set to help direct him through that.
Well, the costume designer and the set designer should have been making notes with each other.
Well, the set was already there. I'm not even sure if they could do anything about that, but the people running the costume should have known to help direct the suit animator through that. Totally an easy thing to fix, but just terrible. Anyway, that's my worst scene. Just that costume deteriorated so quickly.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Me, right?
Bill? Yeah.
So, chicken guy walks in. He shoots the doctor, who ducks accidentally, which is fine. The doctor doesn't hear it. He doesn't check to see if he hit the doctor. He moves on to Nyssa. Nobody's, this is a life or death murder scene, and nobody's paying fucking attention except Nyssa, apparently.
Actually, what happened was the shot went off, the doctor didn't notice it, and then Nyssa noticed it and screamed, and then it turned to Nyssa.
He turned toward Nyssa before she screamed.
I didn't notice that.
He
I
just
noticed him turning
assumed the
afterward.
doctor was dead and aimed at Nyssa.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed him turning to Nyssa after she screamed, so maybe it's just what I saw? I don't know.
Yeah. I think it was like the scream was more of her noticing that the doctor had been shot at, but I could be wrong.
All right, Thomas.
Still.
It's kind of hard to pinpoint an exact one, I think, but God, let's see. If I can't think of one quick enough, I might pass, but
Bad scene. Any bad scene.
You know what? I'll just go with shit. I think I had one now. Bloody lost it. You know what? Yeah, I'll just pass. If I think of one, I'll say it
I've got
at the
another
end.
one now, actually.
All right, Tim.
Well, I don't think this was a bad scene, but it just sort of made me question it. The very, very end where Tegan says, "You're stuck with me," and the doctor says, "Looks like the way," and he smiles, and then just as the credits roll, he frowns, and it's like, wait, did he frown? And it's like, wait, what is that? Is that deliberate, or did
I didn't
Oh
really
yeah,
notice
I'm stuck with her. Oh crap, I'm stuck with her.
was that like a deliberate direction and acting choice of Peter Davison, or did he just not realize that the camera was still rolling and they cut that?
They didn't cut it soon enough, maybe.
I don't know. Couldn't tell you.
Oh crap! I'm stuck with her picture.
Apparently, Nyssa was Peter Davison's favorite companion, so it could be him just kind of throwing a little bit in there of, "Aw, but I wanted to be alone with Nyssa for longer."
I wanted to be alone with Nyssa and this picture of Mai Tais. Yeah. Yeah. How about you, Aaron? What was your least favorite scene?
Any scene that had them floating through the Matrix. Like freaking paper dolls.
Yeah.
And then being tortured by being apparently squiggly lined to death.
Ripple effect of death, yeah.
They ran out of budget when it was time to shoot the Matrix scene.
Well, the fact is that the Matrix scenes, the background for the Matrix scenes were all leftover from the freaking Masters,
Castrovalva?
Yeah, the web in Castrovalva.
Mm-hmm.
It was the exact same stuff, and suddenly that's the Matrix. I liked it when being in the Matrix was creative.
Here's a GIF.
I expected Garth and what's his face to show up. Squiggly line.
Yeah, like, now that I think about it, that
And
probably
Garson Wayne.
was going to be mine, but I blanked. Because,
Wiggle,
yeah,
wiggle,
that
wiggle.
was very, like... It seems like instead of having them floating around, it would have just been, like, having them standing, but in, like, standing in a void, rather than floating, or whatever.
I think
'Cause
I
then,
would have
like,
preferred that.
Yeah, because then, like, the torture kind of shit, they could actually act rather than just having to be like, oh, I'm floating, but I have to, like, act like I'm in serious pain, but I still have to act like I'm floating around. It's like, you can even tell just in some of the outtakes, like, at least one outtake I saw where they were just like, they couldn't take it seriously. It was hard for them not to laugh at the whole situation.
Well, apparently, according to Peter Davison, the entire TARDIS crew had a hard time not laughing with a lot of scenes.
Mm-hmm. So, my least favorite scene were those with Zombie Colin. Because, I'm sorry, he didn't look like a zombie. He looks like he came out of a bong shop.
He looks like he's had a bender all day. Yeah.
He looks like, I mean, you know, Amsterdam is known for its little pot shops all over the place. It looks like he's just spent the last week in one.
It just finally walked out to the street and it's just like, what?
He's on day 4 of a 3-day weekend in Amsterdam. I mean, seriously.
Ouch. By the way, I just found a picture. You might want to look at the subtext on this one.
Ouch.
I don't think it's quite that bad, but...
No, but you look at that face. That face is the face of somebody that's been massively stoned for the last 2 days.
They did a little eyeshadow.
Yeah.
They
Oh
added
wait, he
some
was supposed to be a
SpongeBob.
zombie? I thought he was just supposed to be like out of it from like
No, he's
I don't
like
like-
mind controlled, dude.
sensory deprivation.
No,
Yeah,
he's
he's
mind controlled. He's a zombie. He's like the
Yeah,
voodoo sense of a
basically,
zombie.
yeah.
No, I'm sorry. I've seen people like that in California. We call them bait.
Had an overdose of the brownies, man.
Okay, so let's move on to final thoughts, shall we? Matt.
Final thoughts. Most of the episode, most of the story, most of it runs pretty quickly. The acting usually makes up for most of the faults in this, but there are a few small details here and there that do make you twitch and fidget, and things don't quite work the way they're supposed to. So it's good, but it's not great.
All right. Bill?
So I thought this episode was a mess the first time I read a summary of it, and it didn't disappoint, or rather it did, but in a
It disappointed
not
you in the fact that it
surprising
wasn't as
way.
you thought.
Yeah, this episode's kind of a mess. And Omega definitely does not live up to his previous experience. There are good parts of the episode, like the references and some of the things we've mentioned, but they don't outweigh the flaws.
All right. Thomas?
Yeah, like, this is one of those ones where it's nowhere near necessarily among the better serials, but I'm at least glad that, unlike some, it has some entertainingly bad. At least if it's going to be something that's going to be annoying, like, there are some things in this, like the whole bit with Colin and that are kind of like, oh my god, can we please move on? There's also like stuff like them in the Matrix floating around where it's bad, but it's at least funny. So I give it that much. At least there are elements that I like, and there are some that are really bug me, but then there are others that are at least entertaining in how bad they are.
Tim?
I thought this was above average to okay episode with nothing majorly wrong with it. It was well paced, good acting, and I just wish there could have been more creatures.
All right, Aaron.
It was okay. At least there were some effects and some, like, the costumes and even the setting felt like there was some money thrown at it, but it could just get really boring. And some of the special effects, like I said, the Matrix, were just really not that good. I don't really know if this is something you have to see because it doesn't really build too much on the lore of the show even.
Mm.
All right. So every now and then, the producer of a show gets a concept that is a complete non sequitur. Things like Rick Berman going to the writers of Voyager and go, "I want an episode that breaks one of Gene Roddenberry's primary rules." For John Nathan Turner, it was, "I want to do a film in Amsterdam. I want to shoot an episode in Amsterdam."
I'm pretty sure he had one of those every other month.
Actually,
Possibly.
the funny thing about Amsterdam, by the way, is that the BBC was just recently getting really good deals with Amsterdam, so they could film there for super cheap.
Ah, so that might have actually been...
They could film there, and they could also set up everyone in hotel rooms for super cheap.
But regardless, there wasn't an episode in mind. That was his entire concept. I want to do an episode in Amsterdam.
And they literally had to force the writer, "Hey, we want to make sure everything gets tied into this one place in Amsterdam." And he's just like, "What?"
And meanwhile, they had to write Tegan's return to the TARDIS, and they were probably instructed to do something for the 20th anniversary, too.
Yes. John Nathan Turner said nothing but classic monsters for the 20th season.
Mm-hmm.
So they had to use a classic monster. They had to bring Tegan back on board. And all of this, and all of it wound up just kind of hamstringing it. They got a writer that had a previous writing credit, but just one. I mean, you're going to do something like this, get frickin' Terrence Dicks or Robert Holmes. Don't get the guy that's only done one episode. And he came out with probably what would have been a mediocre episode, except, of course, the fact that they ran into production budget, which is an ongoing issue in this particular era of Doctor Who.
Mm-hmm.
So the costumes had to be made on the cheap, and they had to skimp a little on the special effects and direction, and it winds up showing up and dragging down the episode a bit, making it subpar.
By the way, I think the version I saw had rebuffed special effects.
Yes, I know the version I saw did.
So the effects
I
were
could
actually
still
better
tell.
than what they originally were, and they were actually noticeably good. And I'm like, oh, I bet you these were new digital ones added in later.
Probably
Yes,
the
they
DVD
were.
version.
Too good.
They're too good for 80s.
Yep.
Like the CGI Enterprise in the 60s show.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, so
Which is why I decided not to
to
comment.
Let's go to our scoring, Matt.
Because of Davison finally getting to stretch his legs and act, I want to give this a 4, but I can't, so I have to give this a 3.5.
Surprised you're giving it that high. Bill.
It's above
Yeah,
average.
I'm leaning toward a 2.5. I think I don't think it's as bad as whatever I've given it 2, but I can't give it a 3, so 2.5.
All right. Thomas?
It's so funny because like there's enough redeeming stuff and at least some of it's entertainingly bad, so I'm gonna give it a 3.5 as well.
Tim?
I'm going to be harsh and give this a 4.
That is hard
Harsh,
for
he
Tim.
says.
Aaron?
Geez, Game Informer at Tim. I'm going to give it a 3.
3 flat, and I am going to be with Bill and give it a 2.5 because I feel it was subpar. And that, between that and Tim's glowing 4.0, averages it out to a 3.2.
Just barely above average.
Which, in our rankings, a 3.2 will sort out probably not even past our halfway mark.
Yep, I'm pretty sure it's below the halfway.
Oh yeah, it's actually a basement dweller.
Ooh.
167 out of 215. It is on par with. Well, it's not the dead cell.
Yeah, it's not the sub-basement. It's not the sub-basement.
It's still a basement dweller. It's at the top of the stairs.
I mean, we only have one episode thus far that ranks below a 1. And I've already mentioned it tonight, so I don't need to mention it again.
Dimensions of Time?
No.
Oh. Oh yeah, Trinity to the center of the TARDIS.
Yeah, I felt like I needed to mention it.
I felt like I needed to.
It is on par with Robot, The Pandorica Opens, Big Bang, Time Lash, The Mahogany Murders,
Mahogany.
The Daleks' Master Plan. It is better than Earthshock, surprisingly, Cold War, Rings of Akaton, and it is worse than The Stones of Blood, Modern Undead, and Class for Tonight We Die. 167 out of 215, and that does it for Arc of Infinity.
Not as good as an episode of Class. Not as good as an episode of Class. Oh dear.
That's harsh.
All right, so Bill.
All right, so if you enjoy listening to us, please, subscribe to or follow us on twitch.tv/Unearthly Podcast and at Unearthly Podcast on YouTube. And if enough of you subscribe on YouTube, eventually we can get a real URL like the grown-ups, because screw you, YouTube.
YouTube wants to screw you even harder. We are done trying to show actual footage, by the way, on this show at this point.
You can also follow us on Facebook.com/Unearthly Podcast and Twitter.com/Unearthly Pod for news and updates. And if you want to support us, you can head on over to Patreon.com/Unearthly Podcast.
Unless it's less than 8 seconds.
All right, so next week. There is no next week, as we'll take a bye week off for our between-season breaks and return in 2 weeks, that is the 4th of October, for the start of our 9th series of an Unearthly Podcast, our 9th season, and go back to the Third Doctor era and his first meetup with his greatest foe, arguably, and the return of that incarnation's first enemy in Terror of the Autons, written by Robert Holmes.
What?
I
was going to say, we've finished the Renegade Time Lords. Now for the Renegade Time Lord.
Yep, in Terror of the Autons, written by Robert Holmes and starring John Pertwee as the Doctor, Katie Manning as Joe Grant, Nicholas Courtney as the Brigadier, and introducing Robert Delgado as the Master.
You will obey me.
Yeah. Play us off, Wayne. Squiggly line.
See you in 2 weeks.
Bye-bye.
Good night.